Hey there, welcome back. Whether you're leading a team, pitching an idea, or just trying to sound like you belong in the boardroom, the words you use matter. So let's dive straight in. Here are 5 minutes worth of powerful business vocabulary you can actually use. Firstly, paradigm, a distinct set of concepts, thought patterns, or standards that shapes how something is done or understood. For example, the rise of decentralized finance has forced traditional banking systems to shift toward a new operational paradigm. Building on that idea, let's move to our next word, imperative, an essential, urgent, or crucial duty or factor that requires immediate action. For example, enhancing our cybersecurity framework is a strategic imperative that cannot be delayed into the next fiscal quarter. Now, let's turn to a concept that captures the power of collaboration. Synergy, the interaction of multiple elements to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate parts. For example, the post-merger integration team is focused on unlocking cross-departmental synergies to reduce overhead costs. Closely related is our next term, which helps us measure success, benchmark, a standard or point of reference against which things may be compared or assessed. For example, we need to establish clear performance benchmarks before rolling out the Global Customer Success Initiative. Sometimes, however, decisions are made without agreement from others. Unilateral, an action performed by or affecting only one person, group, or country involved in a situation without the agreement of others. For example, the division head made a unilateral decision to terminate the vendor contract, sparking concerns among regional managers. A more strategic approach involves using resources wisely, which brings us to our next word, leverage, to use something to maximum advantage or to exert strategic influence to achieve a desired outcome. For example, our enterprise clients seek to leverage proprietary market data to optimize their programmatic advertising spend. But smart leaders know that no part exists in isolation. Holistic, characterized by the belief that the parts of something are intimately interconnected and explicable only by reference to the whole. For example, the consulting firm proposed a holistic restructuring plan that addresses both operational efficiency and corporate culture. When facts don't align, we encounter our next term, discrepancy. An illogical lack of compatibility or similarity between two or more facts that should match. For example, the compliance auditors identified a significant discrepancy between the local inventory records and the central ledger. Because the future is uncertain, every plan needs a backup, contingency, a future event or circumstance which is possible but cannot be predicted with absolute certainty. For example, chief operating officers must design robust contingency plans to insulate supply chains against geopolitical instability. Sometimes change happens slowly, but other times something accelerates it dramatically. Catalyst, a person, event, or force that quickly precipitates, accelerates, or inspires significant change or action. For example, the sudden regulatory change served as a catalyst for widespread innovation across the medical technology sector. Sometimes change happens slowly, but other times something accelerates it dramatically. Catalyst, a person, event, or force that quickly precipitates, accelerates, or inspires significant change or action. For example, the sudden regulatory change served as a catalyst for widespread innovation across the medical technology sector. Of course, preventing harm is just as important as creating change. Mitigation, the action of reducing the severity, seriousness, painfulness, or overall exposure of a particular risk. For example, risk mitigation strategies should be embedded directly into the project lifecycle from the initial discovery phase. When we combine many pieces into one total, we're talking about our next concept. Aggregate, formed or calculated by the combination of many separate units or items into a total amount. For example, when analyzed in the aggregate, user engagement metrics demonstrate a strong preference for our mobile-first features. Sometimes a leader must inspire urgent action, which leads us to this powerful verb, galvanize, to shock, excite, or inspire someone into taking urgent, unified action. For example, the CEO's keynote address managed to galvanize the global sales workforce ahead of the product launch. When a group agrees, they achieve something important. Consensus, a general agreement or collective opinion reached by a group as a whole. For example, the executive committee struggled to reach a consensus on whether to divest from the European market. But agreement isn't always necessary when independence is valued. Autonomy, the capacity of a rational individual or organizational business unit to make informed, uncoerced decisions independently, for example, granting regional managers greater operational autonomy has accelerated localized decision making. Past actions often guide future ones, which brings us to our next term, precedent. An earlier event or action that is regarded as an authoritative example or guide to be considered in subsequent similar circumstances. For example, approving this special budget exception could set a problematic precedent for other business units. Not everything is stated directly. Some things are understood without being said, implicit, suggested, hidden, or understood, though not plainly or directly expressed in spoken text or formal contract. For example, there was an implicit understanding among board members that failing to hit profit targets would lead to leadership changes. Certain conditions make success more likely, and that's exactly what our next word describes. Conducive, making a certain situation, outcome, or environment highly likely, favorable, or possible to happen. For example, the flat organizational structure is highly conducive to cross-functional collaboration and rapid iteration. Some spending is optional, decided by the person in charge. Discretionary, available for use or allocation at the complete choice, judgment, or discretion of the user or manager. For example, due to macroeconomic pressures, the board has decided to temporarily freeze all discretionary spending. Finally, let's end with a philosophy that values real-world results above all else, pragmatism, an approach or philosophy that evaluates theories or success solely by the practical application and real-world results. For example, navigating a high-stakes restructuring requires a delicate balance of visionary leadership and operational pragmatism. So, that's it. 20 words that sound impressive, but won't get you promoted on their own. Thanks for being here. Now go practice, but maybe start with your dog. Dogs don't judge, people do. So, in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.